Good morning, Mario, and good morning, Switch fans. I've got a ton of energy today, and I think it's because we're just getting close to the biggest time of the year. And we're starting to talk about it today with some Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 discussion. But before we get to that, we do have some new news on a new game. So what's going on, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce. Hope you're all doing fantastic. Hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. And let's kick it right off with another game doing it to us, guys and girls. I made a video specifically about this topic, and here it happens again, thrown right in my face. The Lord of the Rings Gollum was announced for September 1st, releasing on all platforms, including the Switch. Oh wait, not coming to Switch on September 1st. Everyone else gets Warner Brothers' latest stealth action game, not Nintendo Switch. And this is really, really bad because it's Warner Brothers doing it to us. And they're the ones I held on a pedestal, saying, look, they put out Skywalker Saga, they promised Hogwarts Legacy, they day and date it better than anybody. And here they are, failing us once again. A game that is exciting and coming to Switch is not coming to Switch in any set time frame. They say later in 2022, but will it really hit 2022? Now, I'm not the biggest Lord of the Rings fan, but I still loved having a third-party title releasing on everything. I've seen kind of mixed previews. Some say the game looks repetitive and boring. Some say it would have fit better back when Lord of the Rings was in theaters. And some say it does seem like a neat twist with a unique character. And there's even like dialogue decisions where Gollum and Smeagol are kind of like against each other and you have to decide who you're gonna side with, and that helps shape the story. And that sounds neat, but we won't be experiencing it on Switch, at least at the start. I mean, thank goodness it's not canceled, it's still coming, but this just, it bums me out. Does it bum you out when these games are supposed to be day and date, and then they're like, the Switch one didn't make it? I hate it. I just hate it. Now, a little later in September, we do have a Switch game release. This is September 6th, and it's bringing fake Pokemon, otherwise known as Temtem. Now, Temtem was a really interesting project that started off on PC, moved to other platforms, and now is coming to Switch. The idea here is a more online, futuristic, forward-looking Pokemon-type title where you collect monsters, can play co-op, battle online, and kind of coexist in more of like an online play space. It's a pretty neat game, although in a year where Pokemon is putting their best feet forward, I'm not sure it makes as much of a dent. I know it's been a long time coming for Temtem. It's been out for a couple of years now. This probably would have fared better back when Pokemon was just revving the engines on Switch. Now with Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet, I feel like it's gonna be hard for Temtem to find a footing, but let me know in the comments if you're interested in more like kind of Pokemon action. I will say this one is promising future seasons, battle pass, online, so it does have, again, more of those like modern systems that I doubt Scarlet or Violet will have, but it's not real Pokemon, so like to me it's just always not as cool. One more real quick, Ollie Ollie World, a very cool skateboarding game, announced a very cool expansion. This one's dropping June 15th, so in a couple of weeks. It's called Void Riders, and it brings aliens into the world of Ollie Ollie World. Ollie Ollie World was the sequel to Ollie Ollie, which was a nice skateboarding game. This one got an art style revamp, a bunch of quirky characters, and really strong gameplay. It's one of the top indies on Switch in 2022, and this expansion looks really cool. There's like alien tractor beams that help extend your tricks and all sorts of really crazy characters. It is going to be part of their season pass as well as purchasable standalone, and it's coming in just a couple of weeks. So if you've been waiting to get into the game or waiting for more content, you now have aliens. Okay, you, me, and the big bad Z. Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 is the game we all want. Out of anything related to Switch, we're just brimming with curiosity for what this game is really going to be. Nintendo has trotted it out and said, ta-da, but they never really tell us a lot. And there's a big Nintendo Direct coming up in just a couple of weeks that could be the pivotal moment for this game to finally show off what it's called, what it is, and when we can play it. But there's been discussion back and forth over if Nintendo is actually going to show off Zelda's new adventure in this Direct. And while you're watching, let me know in the comments if you think Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 will be a big feature part of this June Direct presentation or not. Because initially that was 100% the plan. When Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 was to be a holiday 2022 release, I guarantee that this event, this presentation, was chock full of Zelda goodness. It was the highlight of their show, and it was ready to make a humongous mark on the gaming industry by finally revealing what was up with BOTW 2. But now that the game has been delayed to 2023, Nintendo may have changed course. And there's evidence on both sides of the equation, so we need to dig a little bit deeper. Now, Nintendo initially would have had this raring to go, ready to really reveal Breath of the Wild 2. And perhaps they decided to keep that plan, because they know fans have really been waiting. To appease the fans, you have to show off Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 because you've already come out multiple times and said, please be patient, please be patient, please be patient. And we've been pretty patient. And realistically, they haven't really shown off a whole lot. So if they want to make the biggest mark during this E3, not E3 season, it would be showing off a significant chunk of Breath of the Wild 2. There's also a case to be made if Nintendo is struggling with late 2022 development, they could use Breath of the Wild 2 as a stand-in to keep momentum going. Now, we see nearly every other publisher struggling with delays in release dates. Microsoft and Bethesda just kicked Starfield and Redfall to 2023, and it happens pretty much every single week. We know Nintendo has held pretty strong to their release schedule, but we still don't know hardly anything coming out this holiday season. If they're unable to put forth the titles that they normally put out in terms of quantity, maybe they'll use Breath of the Wild 2 as kind of a holdover to say, hey, Zelda. Because you can't really be upset about not a ton of games coming if they show you Zelda. Now, on the other side of the equation, I think the evidence is mounting even stronger, okay? Because I do think Nintendo has a lot to show. And I think if Nintendo has a lot to show, they don't need to use The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. They can save it. And save it for what, you might ask? Well, I have two theories there. One could save it for the September Direct, because that is closer to the game's release and allows E3 time to focus on this year's release, and then a look ahead in September. Now, don't get me wrong, Nintendo will show off a couple 2023 games in their June Direct, but those are usually more teases, and Zelda's been teased enough, therefore it's time for the full reveal. And I think a September Direct centered around Breath of the Wild 2 makes a lot more sense than having it be the centerpiece of a Direct that's still 9+ months out for the game. Now, the other theory is Nintendo's Switch Pro, which is kind of just still lurking there. More and more evidence points to Nintendo prepping a 4K system, and if they are to reveal that, it probably will not be at their June Direct. It probably would have its own event or show up in September, and I would assume Nintendo would want to highlight Breath of the Wild 2 for the first time in full fashion on the new hardware. So that makes a lot of sense. Another reason against showing Breath of the Wild 2 in June is that you still have some major titles that need major explanation. I talked to you guys a lot about what is the deal with Splatoon 3. We don't know why that's a big game yet. They've shown off very little, so they have that to go through. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is an important title for them. That's coming out super soon, and they've shown very little. And then we also have Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which I assume get their own Pokemon Presents, but perhaps it pops at the Nintendo Direct as well. And the other thing to remember is if Nintendo is prepping other Zelda games, as we've heard heavily rumored, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, or both, they would not want to ruffle the feathers of those games' coming releases with the more exciting project, right? You don't show off Wind Waker and Twilight Princess and then show off Breath of the Wild 2 and be like, oh, but please still buy these old games. You kind of reserve the new for later and keep the shine on these old games coming back again. I'm not fully convinced Nintendo is going to do Wind Waker or Twilight Princess, but if they do, then you can bet your butts they won't also double dip and save Breath of the Wild 2 for it to kind of have a Zelda presence somewhere else. Now, there's also just the chance that Breath of the Wild 2 is even farther off than we're imagining. I think all of us kind of pegged Breath of the Wild 2 for a March release date, like in early 2023 since it got shifted out of 2022. But Nintendo's never said that. I suppose there's a strange chance that Breath of the Wild 2 could be summer 2023, or even fall 2023, or perhaps it has another delay. And in that case, we are way too far away for them to show it off at the June Direct. So with the evidence highly piled on the side of no-go, I think it's a no-go. I know that's a bummer, but I hope that Nintendo has enough other stuff, exciting projects, surprise reveals, and deeper dives in games we've already seen to make the June Direct fully fleshed out and fully worth it without needing to toy a farther down the road Breath of the Wild 2. Although I know that'll be a bummer to a bunch of people expecting it, I just want to set your expectations now. I don't think it happens. If I had to bet a percentage, I'd probably say 80% no, 20% yes. And unless Nintendo just really can't get more games out later this year, I think they will reserve Zelda for a future direct and something closer to release, maybe tied to hardware, maybe its own direct, but not this summer. Let me know if you agree with me, if you think I'm completely off base. Do you think Nintendo is going to show Breath of the Wild 2 at their June Direct in a few weeks? Will it be there or will it not? Now the poll was fun today. This is my favorite poll probably of the month. Your Switch is cursed. Which problem do you hope it has? Which sounds terrible. You hope it has no problems, but if you had to pick a problem, it's like Joy-Con drift, reduced battery life, 50 dead pixels scattered all over the screen, can't access the eShop, or no local multiplayer. And it's very clear that nobody wants dead pixels. That was the lowest by far. Only 2% opted for little black dots all over your screen. That would screw up the whole gameplay experience. I was surprised that 24% of you picked Joy-Con drift. Probably because you've already dealt with it and you know how it goes, or you've been able to fix it, in which case that's even better. But the big winner was no local multiplayer. Local multiplayer just, I don't know. Either we don't have friends or we just like to do it online. That's the way it works out. 51%, myself included, would curse our Switch with no local multiplayer. There was also 13% of the reduced battery life, and can't access the eShop was actually the second lowest with only 10% of the vote. So a lot of you just prefer your digital games and access to indies and all sorts of demos, and I totally agree. That'll do it for another episode of Good Morning Mario. Thank you for spending a bit of your day with me. I hope you all doing fantastic out there. Make sure you're staying safe, staying healthy, staying happy, staying positive. And until next time, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for being part of our community. I love and appreciate you a lot. SwitchForce out.